friends, Krista here. Thanks for stopping by Books and Jams again. Today we are going to be doing the video that you've probably been seeing quite a bit on your feed lately. We're doing the mid-year book freakout tag. I love this tag. I love watching other people do it. I love looking at the questions for myself and trying to figure out my answers for this year. It's just such a wonderful way to kind of sum up some things from this far in the year. I have already read 91 books this year, so I need a little bit of wrap up of things. So this tag does that really well. At the beginning of July, I'll be doing a video where I take a look at the goals that I made at the beginning of the year and how am I doing on those, where am I needing to pick up the pace a little bit, kind of helping me to refocus for the end of the year. But this takes a look at the reading that I've already done and kind of celebrates a few different things. So there are about 13 questions and we're just gonna dive right in. I hope that you enjoy this, and if you do, give it a big thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and here we go. So, number one is, what is the best book that you've read so far in 2020? You will probably not be surprised by this, because I've talked about it, I think, in just about every video, I feel like. I love this book so much, The Sun Does Shine by Anthony Ray Hinton. It is a nonfiction, and I love it. It's Anthony Ray Hinton telling his story of being wrongfully convicted and spending 30 years on death row. If you haven't heard me talk about it yet, where have you been? Just kidding. I love this book. I found Anthony's story heartbreaking, infuriating, challenging. I found him to be so inspiring in the way that he handled himself and in the way that he told this story. I absolutely love it. And I think that it is an important read. It's easy in that it's very accessible the way that it's written. It's just him telling his story, and it will break your heart, but also challenge you in a lot of good ways, and it's just fantastic. I loved it. Number two is the best sequel that you've read so far in 2020. And I don't own my favorite sequel, but I will tell you, this is a little bit of a spoiler for that goal check-in video, but I have this amazing page that I made in my bullet journal that I don't necessarily use all the time, but this is all the series that I'm in the middle of, and I need to update in case I've started a new series. I need to go through my list, but this year so far I've read 17, right? 14, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I've read 14 sequels so far, plus I've been rereading the Hagenheim series, and I've read 4 of those so far this year. So that's 18 sequels. Well, 17, right? Because the first one. That is 17 sequels that I've read so far this year. And out of all of these, I have 2 that stand out as favorites. For sure, The Penderwicks of Gardam Street is a middle grade series by Jean Birdsall, and I read the second book this year in middle grade March and absolutely loved it. The Penderwicks are one of my favorite families that I've read about. I just love this group of sisters. I love how they love each other. I love the antics that they get up to. In particular, in this book, we find out about when their mom passed away, which happened before the first book, so it's not really spoilery to tell you. It gives us like a flashback at the beginning of their mom passing away, and then this book happens 4 years later, and their dad starts to date again, and these girls aren't quite sure how they feel about that. So they try to manipulate who he goes on dates with and what happens on these dates, and it's just delightful and heartwarming. I love these girls so much, and I love this family, and I'm very excited to continue in that series, but I need to get them from the library. The other series finisher that I'll talk about, so this is the third in the Mistborn trilogy, The Hero of Ages by Brandon Sanderson. Cannot believe it took me so long to get to this one. First of all, I read the first one in 2018, the second one in 2019, and here we are in 2020, finally finishing this book. I'm so glad that I did. Brandon Sanderson goes there. He is not afraid to kill off your favorite people or to take you in twists and turns that you didn't expect. I really liked in this one, I think I talked about this when I wrapped it up a couple months, or last month maybe, I really liked that we got to see a broader picture of the world of this land that they live in, and how the world got to be the way it is. And yeah, this just gives a broader picture of the world, and I absolutely loved it. Light's right on my face now. I just realized that's probably going to be annoying. I can move over. Just give that a little. There we go. Oh, it's still. Anyways, I read this with Emily from Burrowing Into Books on Instagram, and she's fantastic, and it was so much fun reading it with her, and this was a fabulous, fabulous series that I wished that I read closer together. Anyways, moving on. I'm taking way too long. Okay, a new release that you haven't read yet, but you want to. And thanks to the Book of the Month Club rejoining end of last year, I now actually have new releases. Last year in this mid-year book video, I talked about how I don't normally have new releases because those are the ones I get from the library, but thanks to Book of the Month, I do have some new releases, and my most recent box, which I haven't even hauled yet, has 2 books that I'm super excited for. One of them is One to Watch by Kate Stayman London. I'm really excited about this one because it has a plus-size main character, and it also has like a Bachelor type reality show setting, plot, whatever. So I'm really excited about that because as a plus size gal myself, it's really nice to see a plus size gal having a romance. And I love the Bachelor franchise, so I'm just really, really, really excited about this one. And then also I picked up The Vanishing Half this last month by Britt Bennett, or this month. This was June. And this one is, Britt Bennett is the author of The Mothers, which I still have yet to read. But this one talks about 2 sisters. One of them is white passing, I believe, and they are they separated when they're young? They're identical twins, inseparable as children, but ultimately they choose to live in two very different worlds, one black and one white, weaving together multiple strands and generations from the deep south to California, from the 1950s to the 1990s. The Vanishing Half is at once a riveting emotional family story and a brilliant exploration of race, gender, and identity, and the lasting influence of the past as it shapes a person's desires and expectations. That sounds really, really good. And I know The Mothers was Britt Bennett's debut novel, and I believe she's quite a young author, so I'm really excited to read something else by her. I mean, to read both of those books by her, but in particular, this one is one of the new releases I'm really looking forward to. Number 4 is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. And for this, I'm going to talk about a book that hasn't come out yet. I think it comes out in September, hopefully. And it's Frederick Bachman's new book called Anxious People. I know nothing about the plot. I know nothing about it whatsoever. I've seen the cover of it, and I just know I am absolutely a fan of Frederick Bachman, and anything that he writes, I want to read. So I'm very excited about that one. I don't normally know much about new releases, but I know about Frederick Bachman's new book now, so I'm very excited for that one. The biggest disappointment of the year was pretty easy. When I looked through my 90 books that I've read this year, 2 of them jumped out as bummers, big bummers. One is a nonfiction, and it's Before and After by Lisa Wingate and Judy Christie. This is based on the true events that she tells in a fiction story in Before We Were Yours, which I absolutely loved. So I was very excited to read the real events and real true stories of children who were adopted out through Georgia Tann's Tennessee Children's Home Society. Georgia Tann was an awful woman who often would kidnap children to make money off of their adoptions into wealthy families. The home that she kept was often, the people that worked there were often abusive to the children. She was abusive herself. It just was a horrible, horrible situation. So I was really eager to read about the true life stories of these kids. It was more about these children who had been adopted. Now they're grown adults, and it was about them reconnecting at this party that got thrown together for them. One of the people who had been a child that grew up through the home, and then Lisa Wingate and Judy Christie all kind of pulled together to have this, not party, but like this reunion in a sense. And so the book was really focused on this reunion. It did have some stories thrown in there, and reading actual letters and snippets from these people who had experienced Georgia Tann's fraudulent behaviors firsthand was interesting, but it definitely was a letdown from what I was expecting. The second book that was a huge disappointment to me is The Bookish Life of Nina Hill by Abby Waxman. I wanted to love this book so much, but it just fell flat for me. I honestly don't remember much about it. I did not care that much for Nina Hill. I didn't care for the things that she was going through. I found it to be pretty trite at times. It just was a bummer. I wanted to love it so much. The title sounds like something that I should love, but I didn't. So that was a bummer. Number 6 is the biggest surprise of the year so far. And I have two, and I'm actually currently reading both of these books, but both of them are kind of in the same boat in that everyone that I know who's read them that I can think of has loved them. But when I've heard about these books, they just didn't appeal to me. People would talk about how much they loved them, but they would say what they were about, and I was just like, really? Like, that's gonna be a good book? And I'm only halfway through both of them, but I have to say I'm absolutely enjoying my experience so far, and so that is what makes these such a surprise to me. The first one is I Capture the Castle by Jodie Smith. I think this would be considered a classic now, maybe a modern classic. This cover just doesn't do it for me. It doesn't draw me in. And I've seen this movie and I didn't really care for the movie. So I had really no desire to pick it up. It has been on my recommendations cart, I think last year and this year. People have said you should read this book. And so when I saw a group of women that I follow on BookTube, Tia and Emily from Novelle Novels, Tia from Tia and All the Books, Rainey from Rainy Day Reads, and Angie from Literary Labors, when they started putting together this group read for it for this week right now on Goodreads, on Instagram, I was like, well, now's the time. If I'm going to read it, reading it with a group is definitely the way to go. And I'm loving it. I'm loving the narrator. I'm loving her spunk. She was reminding me so much of the same kind of vibes that I get with Anne of Green Gables, just in the way she feels things so passionately and the way she's also so practical. She's just a lovely narrator, and I don't enjoy all the characters in this book, but I'm really enjoying the reading experience, and that is such a surprise to me. The other one that I'm super surprised about is A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. And people have absolutely loved this book, but I'm like, how can that be interesting? It's this guy stuck in a hotel for years. How is that going to be good? It's got to be boring. Nothing is going to happen. But guys, I have to tell you, I'm absolutely loving this book so much. I'm finding it a little humorous at times, so many food descriptions. The Count himself is just an amazing character. I'm just loving it. I'm really enjoying it. Really enjoying it. And I'm buddy reading this with Amanda from The Curly Reader and Katie from Life Between Words as well. And Katie has already said how much she loved this book. She's rereading it with us. So I'm just so excited to read this book. And it's such a surprise. It's such a surprise. I did not expect to be enjoying either one of those. So yay for that. I love when that happens. Number 7 is a favorite new author. It could be a debut author or just a new to you author. And I'm going to say a new to me author. And even though I've only read one so far by this author, it's Diane Chamberlain. And I read The Dream Daughter. I suppose this is an early call that this is a favorite new author, because people have said that this one is a very big veer away from what her normal writing is. And I am going to be reading Necessary Lies. I'm actually going to be listening to that this coming weekend as I travel. I guess I probably should wait till I finish that one before declaring Diane Chamberlain a new favorite. But I think she's a fantastic storyteller. And even if the topic of what she writes about is different, like this one has some time travel. And I think that's why people say it's a veer away from the others that she's written, because I don't think they include time travel. And that's fine. But I think she's just a fantastic storyteller. The way she wrote really drew me in. And that is important to me in my favorite authors. Frederick Bachman does that. Kristen Hanna does that. Other favorites that I love, they are just really good storytellers. And so I'm hoping that as I read more from her, I'm really going to like her still. So I'm calling her a new favorite. Newest fictional crush is number 8. And like I said last year, I don't typically have fictional crushes. I don't read a book. Even some romance books that I've read, I don't typically get excited about the male characters. However, I did say this last month, that the main fella in this one, The Girl He Used to Know by Tracy Garvis Graves, his name is Jonathan, and he is just so kind and warm and tall, and I just kind of fell in love with him. As a character. And I don't think it's like a crush. I just think that if I could find somebody who's like a Jonathan, I would be doing pretty good. So I'm calling him my newest fictional crush. Number 9 is my newest favorite character, and this one was actually one of the harder questions to answer this time. As I looked through my list of books that I've read this year, not very many characters stand out as somebody that I've thought about beyond the reading of the book. I have to say, I think the Count is going to be a favorite character. I'm only about halfway through this, so that might be an early call, but I really like him. One of the things that I can say that I love about him, besides the fact that he's super smart, he's such a gentleman, and that's the title, right? A gentleman in Moscow. He's a total gentleman. The way he is so respectful and treats other people so kindly. So he is sequestered in this hotel. He's not allowed to leave. It's kind of like a, what is that? What do you call that? House arrest. It's kind of like a house arrest, but at a hotel, right? He befriends this 9-year-old girl early on in his house arrest years. And he trots around the hotel with her. They go exploring into back rooms of the different areas of the hotel, the kitchens and the seamstress office, and down in the boiler rooms in the basement, and they kind of spy on meetings happening in the hall. I don't know, I just loved that this man was spending time in a totally innocent and lovely way, like paying attention to this girl and really hearing her and becoming a friend to her. Not in a weird, and not at all in a weird way. I just love when adults pay attention to the children in their lives and hear them and listen to them. And he is like that. That's the kind of man that he is. And I love that. So he is going to be a favorite, I think, for sure. Number 10 is a book that made me cry. And like I've said before, most books make me cry. A lot of books make me cry. I tear up very easily when I'm reading, but one that stands out to me this year is Still Alice by Lisa Genova. This is about a woman who has early onset Alzheimer's, and it really gives such an amazing picture, an in-depth picture of what that might be like for someone to walk through, for both her and her family members. And this, I was weeping for sure. It was incredible. I still need to watch the movie. I haven't watched the movie of it yet, but this was just a phenomenal book, and I definitely wept buckets. Buckets. On the opposite end, number 11 is a book that made you happy, and I'm very happy to talk about A Kind of Paradise by Amy Rebecca Tan. This is a middle grade that I haven't even hauled yet. I just found this at Book Outlet and grabbed it in my last order. I love this book. This is about a middle school student named Jamie. She made a mistake at school and has to do community service over the summer, so she ends up volunteering at a library. And she gets to know how the library is such an important part of the community. She gets to know a lot of the different patrons who are regulars. Her whole attitude kind of changes and grows over the summer. This was a lovely, lovely story that definitely made me so happy. Another one that I really loved this year so far is Pride, Prejudice, and Other Flavors by Sonali Dev. This was such a fun retelling of Pride and Prejudice, where the story of Pride and Prejudice is recognizable in this retelling, but this one is based on an Indian American family, and the mother is just so very anxious to have her daughter marry an Indian man, and just the family was so much fun. The Pride and Prejudice connections were so fun. The food talked about was so fun. I just absolutely loved it. It was so good. I really love this. And she has a new one about persuasion, I believe, which I'm pumped about because there just aren't enough retellings of Persuasion. So I'm definitely going to get that one soon. But I really loved this Pride and Prejudice retelling. Made me happy. Yay. Number 12 is the most beautiful book that you've bought so far this year or received. And I have a few because pretty books are my thing, right? As most of us as book readers. I swapped for this recently. It's At Home in the World by Tish Oxenrider. And this is gorgeous. I love there's this big white house in the middle, but then there's like all these different things around it. And I love the symmetry of it. I love the colors that are used. I just think that this is gorgeous. Really, really pretty book. And then in my most recent Book Outlet order, which I haven't hauled yet, I have the names they gave us. And if you've been around, you guys know I love Trees on a Cover by Emery Lord. This is a beautiful kind of sky scene, but with that tree as a silhouette tree as a highlight. That's like a trigger for me, like, oh, I want that. It's so pretty. I love trees. And then also, I love this just kind of colorful, symmetrical, don't look at the sticker. I'll like put my finger over that one, but I just think this is really pretty too. That is also from my most recent book outlet haul. So yeah, gorgeous books. So many gorgeous books. And the last question, number 13, is what books do you need to read before the end of the year? And I have a couple. I'm gonna just show you, I had done a 5-star predictions video a couple, like last month, I think maybe, based on my TBR cart, which I'll just pull over. Ooh. These are all books that were recommended to me this year. Let me get out of the way. Whoa, it's caught on my rug. So that cart is jam-packed full of books that I want to read this year. I'm not going to get to all of them, but I did pick out some 5-star predictions, and I've read one. I guess I can add that one. I've read this one, As Bright as Heaven. Oh, which also made me cry a little bit. But then we have The Giver of Stars, Alice Network, Invention of Wings, and The Kite Runner. Definitely plan on getting to all of these this year. But then if I had to pick one more, I'm going to reach. I would say Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. This is a chunkamunka, but really it's deceiving because it's just about 650 pages. So even though it looks like it's like a 1,000-page book, it's just 650, which is much more doable in my mind. Elizabeth Gaskell wrote North and South, which is one of my favorite classics ever. And I'm really eager to read more from her. And I have a couple friends who say they like this even better than North and South, which is shocking to me because I love North and South. But I'm very, very eager to read this. So I'm really hoping to get to it before the end of the year, as well as like all the books. I want to read all of them. I love doing this tag, and I can't wait to talk even more about some of my goals from this year and how I'm doing on them, but I'm going to stop there because that's all the questions, and I'm not going to tag anybody because this tag has been around for a while, and hopefully you're planning on doing it. If not, I tag you, do it. It's a good way to look at your reading from the year and just kind of reflect on some things and what was good, what was bad, what do you love, what you didn't love. I would love to hear from you. Either what was your favorite book so far this year or a book that made you happy. Let's just share some joy today. What's a book that really made you happy this year that you maybe found yourself smiling while reading it, or it just kind of came at the right time, the right book at the right time? I love when that happens. And I have quite a few of those, but I just shared a few today. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let's chat down in the comments, and I will be talking to you in another video very soon. Bye.